My name is Amy, and I never imagined that one short visit to my friend's house would change everything in my life. It started on a quiet Friday afternoon. I had just finished a long week of work and needed a break. My best friend, Lily, had invited me to her house for the weekend. I hadn't seen her in a while, and I missed her terribly, so I packed a small bag and took the train to her town. Lily lived in a cozy house at the edge of a small city. The moment I arrived, she ran out to hug me. We laughed and talked nonstop as we walked back into the house. It felt like old times. I was so happy to be there, to escape my usual routine, and just relax. But then, something unexpected happened. As we walked into the kitchen, I saw someone standing there. He had his back turned to us, pouring coffee into a mug. Tall, strong shoulders, messy dark hair, wearing a plain white t-shirt and jeans. When he turned around, our eyes met. He had deep blue eyes that seemed to look straight through me. My heart skipped a beat. I didn't know who he was, but I couldn't stop looking at him. Lily smiled and said, "Amy, this is my brother, Chris. He's staying with us for a few weeks." Chris looked at me and nodded politely, then gave a small smile that made my stomach twist in a strange, warm way. I managed to say, "Hi," trying to sound normal, but inside, everything felt different. That whole weekend, I found myself watching him when I thought he wasn't looking. The way he talked to Lily, the way he moved around the house, the way he smiled at the dog, it was like he wasn't just a person, but something more. I tried not to fall, but it was too late. I was already falling for him. The next day, we all went out for a walk in the park. Chris walked next to me, and we talked a little. He asked about my job, and I asked about his. He told me he was a photographer and had just come back from a trip abroad. His voice was calm and warm. I loved how he looked when he talked about the places he had visited. There was something honest in his words, something I trusted immediately. That night, I couldn't sleep. I lay in bed staring at the ceiling, thinking about Chris. I kept asking myself, what's happening to me? Why do I feel like this so fast? But the answer was already clear. I liked him. I really, really liked him. I knew it wouldn't be easy. He was my best friend's brother. I had no idea how he felt about me. Maybe I was just another guest in the house to him. Maybe he was just being polite. But I couldn't help it. I wanted more. I wanted to know him better. I wanted to be around him, to make him laugh, to see him smile. And deep inside, I knew something else. I wanted him in my life, not just for now, but for always. I wanted to marry him. I didn't know how or when, but I had made up my mind. No matter how hard it might be, I was going to try. I was going to fight for this. For him. For us. When I look back now, I still can't believe how much we went through just to be together. Being with Chris wasn't easy. It was never a straight road. But I loved him with all my heart, and that love gave me strength, even when everything seemed against us. After that magical day at Lily's house, the day I realized how deeply I had fallen for Chris, my life changed. I started thinking about him all the time. Every little thing reminded me of him. His smile, his calm voice, his way of listening, it all stayed in my head like a song I couldn't stop singing. But being with Chris wasn't simple. At first, we had to hide our feelings. His family didn't know, my family didn't know, and Lily had no idea that her best friend had fallen for her brother. I felt guilty at times, like I was keeping a secret from her. But it wasn't just a crush anymore. I knew what I felt was real. The first big problem came when Chris told his parents about us. They didn't like it. They thought I was too young, too naive, too emotional. They thought I was just a guest, a girl from outside their world. I cried that night. I cried so much that my eyes were red the next morning. Chris held me and whispered, "Don't worry. I'm not giving up." He didn't. We kept meeting in parks, cafes, and sometimes even in Lily's backyard when no one was home. We talked for hours. We dreamed together. We made plans, small and big, where we'd live, what our home would look like, how many cats we'd have. I always said 2. He always said 0. So we agreed on 1. But more problems came. Chris lost his job at the tech company he worked for. That hit him hard. He started feeling lost, unsure of the future. I tried to support him, but I didn't have much money either. I was still studying. We were both struggling, emotionally and financially. People around us told us to take a break, to think carefully, to wait until life is more stable. But we didn't want to wait. We knew waiting could mean growing apart. We didn't want to lose what we had. Then came the visa issue. Chris got an opportunity to work abroad, just for a year. It was a great job, but it meant being away from me. We had long, painful conversations about it. We cried together. We fought a few times too. But finally, I said, "Go. I'll wait. I promise." And he promised he'd come back for me. That year was the hardest year of my life. Long distance was brutal. We talked every night. Sometimes we laughed. Sometimes we just stared at each other on the screen, not knowing what to say. Sometimes we were too tired to even smile. But we held on. Every day, we counted down. Every day, we reminded ourselves, just a few months more. Just a few weeks. Just a few days. When he came back, we hugged so tightly at the airport that people around us clapped. I cried on his shoulder and said, "Don't go anywhere ever again." He whispered back, "I'm home." After that, we made a decision. We're getting married. No more waiting. No more hiding. No more worrying about what people think. We told our families. His parents were still unsure, but they could see how serious we were. They saw that I stayed loyal to him during the hardest times. Slowly, they accepted me, not just as a girl Chris loved, but as a woman who stood by him through everything. Our wedding wasn't big. We didn't have much money. But it was beautiful. We had a small ceremony in a garden. I wore a simple white dress. He wore a blue suit. Lily cried the whole time and hugged me so tight afterward. She said, "I'm happy you're my sister now." I'll never forget the moment we said, "I do." I looked into his eyes and thought about every tear, every fight, every hug, every late-night call, and I knew it was all worth it. We were finally together. Not as a secret. Not as a dream. But as husband and wife. And that was just the beginning of our story. A few years passed after our wedding. Life with Chris was not always easy, but it was beautiful. We had little money in the beginning, and both of us were busy with work. I worked long hours in a small office, and Chris was trying to grow his own business. We didn't take vacations, and we didn't buy new things. But we had each other. Every evening, we would sit together on the couch, drink tea, and talk about our dreams. One of those dreams was having a child. We both loved children. I always imagined myself as a mother. I imagined holding my baby in my arms, singing songs, reading bedtime stories. Chris also talked about it a lot. He would smile and say, "One day, I want a little girl who looks like you." Those words always made me cry softly, but I smiled too. We tried to have a baby for over a year. At first, we thought it was just taking time. Everyone said, "Be patient. Don't worry. It will happen." So I waited and waited. But nothing happened. After 2 years, I started to worry. I went to a doctor in our town. She did some tests and told me everything looked normal. I was happy at first. But deep inside, I still felt something was wrong. Chris supported me. He came with me to every appointment. He held my hand when I was scared. But month after month, the test was always negative. I cried every time I saw that one lonely line on the test stick. It felt like the world was closing in. We started traveling to other cities to see better doctors. Some were kind, some were cold. I remember one doctor in a big hospital who looked at me and said, "I'm sorry. You may never have a baby." Those words broke me. I couldn't breathe in that moment. I looked at Chris, hoping he would tell me it wasn't true. But he was quiet. He just hugged me so tightly in that hospital hallway, and I cried in his arms like a child. After that day, I changed. I became quieter. I stopped laughing like before. I didn't want to meet friends or go to parties where people talked about their children. Every time I saw a baby in the street, I smiled, but my heart hurt. Chris tried everything to make me smile. He bought me flowers. He took me to my favorite cafe. He even bought a small kitten one day, thinking maybe a pet would help. The kitten was sweet, and I named her Hope. But still, a part of me felt empty. Some people said, "Just adopt a child." But it wasn't so easy. I needed time to accept that my body couldn't do what I always believed it could. I felt like I was broken. Like I wasn't enough. Chris never blamed me. Never. He always said, "You are my home, Amy. Not a baby. Not anything else. You are enough for me." But I didn't feel enough for myself. Still, I didn't give up. I started reading about treatments. We traveled to another country for help. I tried medicines, diets, yoga, everything. I sat in waiting rooms with other women like me, women full of hope, but also full of fear. Years passed. My hair started turning gray earlier than it should. My eyes looked tired in the mirror. But Chris was always beside me. And that, somehow, gave me strength to continue. After many years of trying, after visiting so many doctors, traveling from one city to another, taking hundreds of tests, and going through painful treatments, something finally changed. One morning, I held the test in my shaking hands and saw 2 pink lines. I sat on the bathroom floor, staring at it, not knowing whether to laugh or cry. After all those years of waiting, praying, and feeling hopeless, I was finally pregnant. A tiny life was growing inside me. I was going to be a mother. At first, everything felt like a dream. Chris was overjoyed. He kissed my forehead every night and whispered to my belly as if our baby could already hear him. He started reading about babies, parenting, and pregnancy. He bought baby books and sent me links to every article he thought might help. He took me to every appointment, held my hand during every ultrasound, and cried quietly when we heard the heartbeat for the first time. But something strange started happening to me. Maybe it was the hormones. Maybe it was the fear. Or maybe it was the long years of disappointment that had changed the way I thought. Whatever it was, I began to worry about things that didn't make sense. I started watching Chris more closely. I noticed when he looked at his phone too long. I paid attention when he left the room to take a call. I listened to the tone of his voice when he talked to other women. Every small thing made me nervous. I kept thinking, what if he's tired of me? What if now that I'm pregnant, he feels trapped? What if he finds someone better, someone who doesn't cry so easily, someone who isn't so broken? The thoughts didn't stop. I didn't talk about them. I just kept them inside, letting them grow like shadows in my heart. I smiled when I needed to. I told Chris I was fine. But in my head, I was building stories where he didn't love me anymore, where he had secrets, where I was no longer enough for him. I started checking his phone when he was in the shower. I read his messages, even though there was nothing wrong in them. I followed him around the house with my eyes, trying to catch him doing something wrong. But he never did. He never gave me a reason to doubt him. He was the same loving, caring, gentle man he had always been. He made me breakfast when I was too tired to move. He massaged my swollen feet at night. He talked to our baby every single day, telling them how much he loved them already. He supported me when I cried for no reason. He never shouted, never complained, never pulled away. Still, the fear didn't stop. I hated myself for doubting him, but I couldn't stop. I felt guilty all the time, and I didn't know how to explain what was happening inside my head. It was like I was living in two worlds, one where Chris loved me completely, and one where I believed I might lose him any second. And even though deep down I knew he was faithful, kind, and honest, I kept questioning everything. My heart was so full of fear that I couldn't enjoy the happiness I had waited for all my life. I was finally pregnant, but I didn't feel peaceful. I was scared. I was confused. I was broken in ways I didn't know how to fix. But Chris stayed. Through all of it. After all the pain and struggles I went through to become a mother, I thought the hardest part of life was finally over. When I held my baby girl in my arms for the first time, I cried like a child. She was so small, so perfect, and so innocent. I named her Lily. I had waited for her for so many years, and now that she was here, I felt complete. In the beginning, everything seemed fine. Chris was happy too, or at least that's what I believed. He held Lily, played with her, and took photos of us like any proud father. But something in him slowly started to change. It was hard to explain at first. He began spending more time outside the house. He said work was busy, that he had to travel more often, that he was tired. I believed him. I wanted to believe him. I was too busy with the baby, and I didn't want to fight. But over time, the distance between us grew. He stopped asking how I felt. He stopped looking at me the way he used to. I became a mother, yes, but I was still a woman who needed love, support, and a partner to walk beside me. Instead, I started to feel invisible. Like I was only the mother of his child, not his wife anymore. Then, one evening, everything changed. He came home, quiet and serious. He sat down and told me he had met someone else. Someone younger. Someone who, in his words, made him feel alive again. I couldn't breathe. I thought I would faint. My heart was racing, my hands were shaking, and Lily was asleep in the next room, completely unaware that her parents' world was falling apart. I asked him why. I asked him how he could do this to us, after everything we had been through. But he just looked away. I could see that he had already made up his mind. He didn't want to fight for us. He didn't want to stay. He wanted freedom. He wanted her. So, just like that, he left. I was alone. Alone with a baby in my arms and a broken heart inside my chest. The nights were the hardest. Lily would cry, and I would hold her while crying too. I didn't want her to see me in pain, but I couldn't hide it. I had no one to help me. No husband. No support. Just me and my child. The house felt empty without him. His clothes were gone, his voice no longer filled the rooms, and the silence hurt more than any words ever could. I tried to stay strong for Lily. She was all I had now. I looked into her eyes, and I promised myself I would never let her feel unloved, unwanted, or abandoned. Even though my heart was shattered, I had to keep going. For her. For me. After Chris left me and our little son, my heart was broken in many pieces. Every day felt long and empty. I had to be strong, not only for myself but for my child. I remember the nights I cried quietly so my son wouldn't hear me. He was too young to understand what happened. I didn't want him to feel pain, even though I was full of pain inside. In the beginning, I thought maybe Chris would come back. I thought maybe he was just confused. I waited for weeks, then months. But nothing changed. He started a new life with the other woman. I saw pictures of them on social media. That was the moment I knew it was really over. It hurt so much, but it also helped me to stop hoping. I had to accept the truth and move forward. Life as a single mother was very hard. I had no one to help me with the baby. I was tired all the time. I worked during the day and stayed awake during the night when my baby cried. I didn't have time for myself. I didn't go out. I didn't meet friends. My whole world became small. It was just me and my baby. But slowly, I got stronger. I found power inside me that I didn't know I had. I learned how to fix things in the house by myself. I learned how to pay bills, buy food, and take care of everything without asking anyone for help. I didn't need Chris anymore. I became independent. One day, when my son was about 2 years old, I took him to the park. It was a sunny day, and the sky was blue. My son was playing with the other kids. I sat on a bench, feeling a little more peaceful than usual. That's when I met Jack. Jack was playing with his niece. He looked friendly and kind. When our kids started playing together, we began to talk. At first, it was just small talk. Nothing serious. But I noticed something about him. He listened. He really listened. He didn't look at his phone. He didn't interrupt. He looked into my eyes and gave me his full attention. It had been a long time since anyone did that. We met again in the park a few times. Then he invited me for coffee. I was nervous, but I said yes. That coffee turned into long conversations. We talked about everything: life, family, past pain, future dreams. Jack had also been hurt before. He had been through a bad relationship, so he understood my fear, my sadness, and my silence. He didn't try to fix me. He didn't try to push me. He just stayed close and was patient. Months passed. I started to feel something I hadn't felt in a long time. Peace. Safety. Joy. Jack made me laugh again. He made me feel beautiful again. He never judged me for being a mother. In fact, he loved my son. He played with him, cared for him, and treated him like his own. One day, Jack asked me to marry him. My hands were shaking when he asked. Not because I didn't want to, but because I never thought I would find love again. I said yes with tears in my eyes. We got married in a small ceremony. Just a few friends and family. Nothing big. But it was full of love. I wore a simple dress. My son held my hand. And Jack, he looked at me like I was the most important person in the world. Now, life is very different. We live in a warm, happy home. My son calls Jack Dad because Jack became the father he needed. We eat dinner together every night. We laugh a lot. We go for walks, play board games, and watch movies on weekends. Sometimes I look at my life and feel surprised. I never thought happiness would come back. But it did. The pain I had with Chris will always be part of my story. But it's not the end. It's just a chapter. Jack helped me start a new chapter, a better one. A chapter full of love, respect, kindness, and hope.